So there was a you were on my TV show Hampton Roads Business Weekly twice.
2
Is that
times.
right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the first time there was outtakes. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because
Because we was screwing up back and forth.
yeah, it was something we were trying to do with some sort of segment. I don't know what it was, but
Was it the actual like 5-minute segment, or was it when I was like, hello, coming up next?
I think that's what it was. I think it was
Yeah.
doing the teaser.
Those are always hard. I would love to see those outtakes as well. What's interesting is there is an episode that so we'll never see those again. I'm sure they erased the cards. There's no doubt in my mind. But what's interesting is that show probably started recording in May of 2015-ish, 7 years ago. I don't know. That's my guess. And then they rebranded to the word Connect, and I think they still do it. I'm not sure. I bailed on that a long time ago. But I shot an interview and at Extuple in Norfolk with Ned Lilly, the president there. And what's interesting is I also did this other interview with Paul DiNardo, and the interview with Paul aired, and then the interview with Ned never aired, and they can't find the video. They can't find the video. So for like a year, he's like, "When is it running?" And I'm like, I don't know. So I would love to see outtakes because I'm an outtake machine. Because at first I wasn't wearing glasses and I was trying to read the screen and I needed glasses, so I'd be like sitting there like, "How now, brown cow?"
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what we were just laughing, and everyone just got worse and worse and worse in terms of the amount of laughter involved. It was a lot of fun.
Well, and my co-host at that time was someone who had, I don't know, 15 years experience, and this individual could read the damn screen. So I'm sure she kept looking at me like, I gotta deal with this clown. Like, first of all, he like looks like a schmuck, can't wear a suit. Next thing you know, like, I can't read either. But it happens. I love outtakes.
It was fun. I appreciate you having me on the 2 times that I was on.
2-time. Speaking of fun, we're hoping that today's guest is a ton of fun. Fun fact, our guest today is not only a twin, but he's also a triplet.
Can you be both at the same time?
I don't know. What was the joke that you said to me when you first...
You said, how are you doing? And I said, if I were any better, I'd be a twin. But I'm a triplet, so if I turn into a twin, I'm having a real bad day. Or my family's having a real bad day.
I would think that you are a twin and a triplet. No?
I don't know. I'm not an expert in those areas. It's a bit I've used my entire life, and it's always been an icebreaker. That's pretty easy.
There you go. Zach's big on the icebreakers. So
is that true? I thought you just told me that you stole that from someone else a year ago.
No, the fact that I'm a triplet has existed, but that it's like, oh, how are you doing? It's everyone says good and nobody means it. So I was like, if I were any better, I'd be a twin. And then they feel like they have to laugh because it's so weird. And then I, bring it back. So, a little bit of forced laughter never hurt anyone.
Are you the type of twin that all of you look the same, or the triplets where you guys all look the same?
No, so we're not identical. We're fraternal, but you would know we're related. Like people do get us mixed up if we're not standing next to each other, but we're not identical.
All guys, mixture, guys and girls?
All guys.
Are there ever triplets that are a mixture of guys and girls?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Okay.
Oh, I'm from Delaware. There were 4 sets of triplets, and all of us knew everybody. It was like very small. So
is it in the water? Your parents been drinking that dogfish head? Is that what happened?
Yes, probably. No, dogfish head wasn't around when I was born.
Allegedly. What? So Tim said icebreaker. I mean, I'm a big fan of icebreakers. I agree with you. Most people's icebreakers are terrible. Oh, what do you do for a living? Is normally or how are you? Good. Like they're all lying. Like most people are going through something and they're not really good. Like what are some of the worst icebreakers that you ever heard?
Worst icebreakers I've ever heard. Definitely.
Boy, Zach coming out with the heat real fast.
There's the classic. So where are you calling from? That everybody typically jumps into. There's the how you're feeling, which you already went to, and it's like how's the weather today? It's like what? And then I always put on like a rainy background. They're like, oh, it must be raining where you are. I'm like, nope, no, it's not. And then
it's foggy there today, it looks like.
Yeah, real blurry actually. I need to, maybe your glasses need adjustment. Mine do too, for sure.
Mine is, what are you watching on Netflix? Tim, you went to an event last night and have been going to networking events somewhat on the regular.
It's been a busy week, yeah.
What are some of the questions that you're hearing from when people, because I would assume that when you know some of the people, so there isn't that like ridiculous first question, but when you meet someone the first time, what are people saying these days?
Well, the crazy thing for me, like I was at an event last night, a panel the day before. So when you see somebody for the first time, it's weird, like unrecognizable, or I'm like, I really got to try to look for this person because we're so used to seeing each other on these tiny little squares. So you don't know how tall they are. Huh? Well, yeah, they're taller, they're shorter. I mean, everyone's got the same real estate in this on a platform like this. So Tuesday when I met somebody, they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm so and so. I was involved in Star Peninsula or whatever." And it's like, now once I know the name, then everything comes back. But I think the most common thing now, it's like, "Oh, it's great to see you in person. It's great to see you in something other than a 2x2 box kind of thing." But
I got a really good story about that. So, he's a really good friend of mine now. His name's Wesley Spencer. I'm gonna make sure he watches this.
Clip this, Vander.
Yeah, clip it. So, I had been talking with him over Zoom. He's an advisor in our company, and he was like really just helping us out navigate the managed service provider space, the cybersecurity space too. And we flew down after talking for like a year. He flew us down to his place in Florida. And he's walking up to me and my co-founder. So there's me, and then my co-founder is like Josh. He's an awesome guy. He's the typical coder. He's like t-shirt, shorts, really long beard, beanie on. And Wes is this monster, dude. He's like 6'4", but I've only ever
way to really stereotype the coders. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm picturing Jack Dorsey in my mind right now.
Yes.
He has a beard exactly like Jack Dorsey's.
Yes.
And so we meet Wes, and he's 6'4", right? He's huge, and all I've ever seen is him through this little tiny Zoom window. And he walks up to Josh, and he shakes his hand. He's like, "Yeah, you're about what I expected you to look like." And then he looks at me, looks me up and down. He's like, "You're fatter than I thought you'd be." And then shakes my hand. And that was the first words I ever spoke to him in person. I was like,
And is he right? Like, what were you thinking? Like, I mean, do you feel like this screen, the 2-inch screen, helps your body or not in this situation?
I'm definitely getting some help from the screen right here. Maybe the background too.
Well, there you go.
So he wasn't lying.
So he wasn't lying, is what you're saying. Got it.
Yeah, but I use that as an icebreaker all the time. It's like, you know, the first words this guy said to me, if I'm ever at a conference and he's there, gets a laugh. That is a true story. Good. He'll never live it down.
Gotta hook him fast. What was his name? Wesley?
Wesley Spencer. Yeah.
So you're in business. In
cybersecurity. Yeah.
A cybersecurity business. Let's talk about that. How'd you get into? Yeah. How'd you get into it? What's the deal?
So in college, I went to University of Delaware. I started a software development company with a cybersecurity professor. He actually lives like 4 houses that way right now. And we were basically code monkeys for hire. And I didn't know how to write code. So I taught myself software development. I was studying math at the time, actually. And we were just building what I thought was really cool cybersecurity products, but nobody wanted to buy them at all, ever. And so I, beat my head against a wall like that for like a year. And after a year, I was like, this sucks. What I should probably do is just ask people questions and ask them what they would like me to build instead of trying to build something for them and predict what they'll want. And that was the start of Phin, which is what I do now, which is I just ask people questions. They complained about users making mistakes and, managing security awareness programs. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll stop doing everything that's not working and start doing this. That was like 3 years ago.
Was that easy to figure out? Because I think a lot let me backtrack. So did you read that somewhere? Did you listen to it on a podcast? Like, who gave you that advice, or where did you come up with the idea of doing that? And then once you realized that maybe that was the right path, asking people a ton of questions, like my beef with that is always, how do you know that person is actually a customer?
Right.
And in some cases, I think it's, get these people who don't feel comfortable with sales to get comfortable asking questions. And that's a completely different scenario. But a lot of people can ask a lot of questions, get answers. And it's like, but their wallet's never coming out. So you're getting technically bad advice, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. I think you tweeted about this and I followed it up with a customer who's not paying is not a customer. Stop listening is like one of the pieces of advice.
I mean, isn't that true?
If they're not willing to put their money where their mouth is, find somebody that will. You need the early adopter.
Well, I think the interesting thing with security too is a lot of people just want to look the other way because should I spend $10,000 on something now for something that may never happen, or do I wait and then be reactive? It's sad but amazing how many companies would choose to be reactive versus proactive.
Has your iPhone ever been hacked, Tim?
Well, not that I'm aware of.
So about 2 years ago, Garmin had that. Garmin
was down for like and they held him hostage. Yeah,
what was that called now? What were they called?
Ransomware.
Ransomware, yeah.
Yeah, and they paid, if I remember right.
Oh yeah, like $7 million, which doesn't seem like that much money, but like
it's not for Garmin. And also, usually depends upon the cyber insurance policy you have, but sometimes the policy will pay the ransom for you.
It's so much of cybersecurity seems to be reactive to me. What mindset do you have to be in to be proactive, to think of it before it happens?
So there's two pieces of the mindset that are coming forth that are proper. The first is you're not going to prevent all breaches. Like, it's only a matter of time. You can be as responsible as possible and you can do everything right and you can try to be proactive. But at the end of the day, it's just such a huge surface area of risk to cover that you need to also have plans in place. And this is what we call like tabletop exercises or incident response plans, that when something does happen, because it will, it's like you need to assume it will happen and then plan for that, that you'll be ready. And then the goal at that point is to just mitigate the damage and make sure that your assets are obfuscated enough and not connected enough that nobody could get all of them at once.
Who's your target customer with Phin?
So there's a group of cybersecurity companies called not cybersecurity necessarily, but a group of companies called managed service providers, and they are the back office IT companies for hundreds or thousands, if not tens of thousands of companies at a time, all the way from small businesses to enterprise. And so they are kind of like this controller for the stack of cybersecurity and IT solutions that they purchased.
Is that like a hosting company?
Not necessarily. It could be, but not necessarily.
Okay.
So a managed service provider will say, like, we're going to make sure your phones are working. We're going to make sure your infrastructure is working. We're going to deploy all of these monitoring and alerting tools to know that if there's somebody who's trying to steal data, we're aware of it, or if somebody's trying to ransomware you, that like they can see on the network logs all of the malicious things attempting to occur. So the managed service provider has hundreds of clients at a time. And the reason I decided to work with them is, well, I ran across a few of them early on, but most importantly, it's like, I was a young kid when I'm still young, but I'm way younger when I started. I was like 22. It's like, nobody's going to trust me like at all doing anything cybersecurity wise in their company. So I just need the trust of this one company here, this managed service provider, and then I can get the implicit trust of hundreds or thousands of companies at a time. So I need to make something for this style of company, because if I get them, I get free marketing or whatever you want, free distribution and penetration into a bunch of different clients.
I think that's smart. Because not only you being younger, being part of a young company, that was one of the biggest challenges that I had when I started my company. Was people are like, "Why should I do business with you? I don't even know if you're going to be in business a year from now or 2 years from now when I do need something." So that's an interesting tactic to use.
You got that a lot, Tim?
I got it a few times, yeah. And it was one of those deals that I didn't realize that before starting my gig, that I just took the brand from my previous company for granted. I never even thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that runway. I don't know if that's the right word in this case, but like, people are like, "Oh, how come that company's doing that?" I'm like, well, they're 70 years old, so they have a 70-year start on you. That's for starters. Like, Good luck being that. Oh, well, their reputation's bad. It ain't that bad.
Yeah, but from a cybersecurity standpoint, though, I think that I would reach out to somebody that's younger, that's more in tune with. I mean, you've grown up with devices in your hand, so I mean that's a different paradigm. Whereas, as opposed to someone else who's senior, we'll say, a gray beard, that I have a gray beard that it's like, man, you didn't learn this stuff as it was coming out. I don't know. It's interesting.
How old are you?
Me? 26.
Well, I know how old Tim is. 26.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm 26 now. Yeah, got the hairline of a 45-year-old though.
Oh wow. I have no comment for that. I'm at a loss for words. That doesn't happen very often. So
clip that, Andrew, as well.
I'm at a loss. I'm thinking to myself, what did he say? 45 years old? Okay, so I got 7 years to go, and I'm like trying to look at his hair, and I'm like, okay, like are we doing well here? Like, okay, so are you a coder?
Yeah, I built the first
fake, or did you just fake it, and you're not really a coder, and you're something else?
I've never had an official job. Like I've never worked at a bank or a software development company other than my own. But I did actually teach myself how to write the code. And the first version of our platform, I was the core contributor.
Who is doing it now?
We have 5 software developers, one of which is my co-founder and best friend, Josh.
And how often do you hear them on the phone, on Zooms, on Slack, just throw an immense amount of shade at your code?
Oh, all the time. I throw shade at my own code. It's like, I got us from 0 to 1, maybe, barely. It's like, we need you guys to get us from 1 to 100.
Where is the best place to learn code, though?
YouTube.
I was going to say, you can't go to a college or university to learn code. I mean, because they will admit that they are super, super slow. They move
25 years behind.
Right. Yeah. And so it's like, that's interesting. And is there a group of people that are most notable to follow that are on the cutting edge in terms of most recent best practices?
So yes, there's a lot of like code influencers. You don't necessarily need to listen to them. What I did is I just went straight to the source. So like Facebook manages React, which is like a framework for building the front end of a website and the front end of an application. So it's like, if you want to learn React, just like go on YouTube, and it's like starting with React. And typically you'll get the code influencers, and then you'll get like the actual team at Facebook or whatever company that is responsible for managing it and training new people to use it, because they just want the most adoption. So that's what I did. I was like, what I tell everyone, they're like, oh, you got started in code, you're self-taught. What should I do? It's like, pick a cool thing you'd like to do. It's like, I want to type on my keyboard a YouTube video, and it opens up my Google Chrome with it already searched in and the results already there. It's like, knowing how to do that is going to teach you so much about commanding your computer to do something, interfacing with an application, which is YouTube, and then Google Chrome as well. Like there's a whole bunch of different components that you learn how to interact with that way.
Do you use is SourceGraph another tool that is often used?
I didn't quite hear that tool.
SourceGraph.
I've never heard of it. Probably, but I've never heard of it.
It's just a repository of code that you can essentially Google lots of code that's in a library so that you don't have to replicate it.
Stack Overflow is the answer to that one. If you've ever heard of Stack Overflow, it's okay, yeah, same thing. Math Overflow, Stack Overflow. It's like they are the place that you go to really learn.
Okay, so you're 26. I'm 38. Tim's somewhere in his 40s. Can't remember.
48. Yep.
48. Okay. What was the job in growing up in high school or like grade school that most people, like they were pushing people to go towards? Do you remember? Tim first.
Tim first. Okay.
What was the job that I wanted?
No, not necessarily you, but just like in general, was there a career that they were pushing? Like, oh, this is the career that everyone should go. Was it like white collar service provider? So like lawyer.
Man, that's going back a long time, dude.
Don't throw your age in there. Come on.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's hard to say.
Because I don't know what it was for me either.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you say that. And so we don't have to answer it. But I am interested from Connor's perspective, because it seems like this generation, everyone said everyone should code. Everyone should code. Everyone should code. Everyone should code.
And I still stand behind that.
I agree. But are people actually getting into it? Like, is that still the next thing?
I think it should be pushed harder. I mean, it's really, really tough to compete when you have.
Do you think that you went to an entrepreneurship competition last night then, right? Do you think that they should stop pushing entrepreneurship and they should start pushing the way that they push entrepreneurship from a coding perspective, and that would be better off for these individuals?
Well, I think that both of those are skills that you need to have. I mean, entrepreneurship, even if you don't ever start a business, the ability to think about things in a way to identify a problem and then come up with a solution,
right,
is going to be something that's going to benefit you for the rest of your life. I mean, it just, to me, it's super annoying when someone identifies a problem and then they don't offer a solution for it. So, I mean, from an employment standpoint, if someone does that, they're just essentially creating work for me. It's like, dude, I don't need more work. I'm way too busy as it is. But if you propose a solution, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Go ahead and execute the solution, run with it. That's awesome. And I think that people need to be taught that to think critically and come up with different ways of doing things.
Connor, were they teaching you code? I mean, were they telling you to code?
As much as you might not believe this, I'm a little older than
26.
That generation. Like nowadays, it's like everybody coming through high school and into college is pushed towards software development in some way, shape, or form. It's like your grandparents, if they can't use an iPhone, it's like they're fundamentally disconnected from your family and who you are at some level. I view software development at the minimum, like my level of understanding, which is like sophomoric at best, as that next evolution of that. It's like you're going to need to be able to interface with computers like that at that level.
I mean, it's interesting because when you have Elon, who's got 91, 92 million followers now, saying, "Hey, we need software developers."
Yeah,
I don't care about your education. Yeah, I don't care about any. We'll teach you. And they need developers for SpaceX, for Tesla, for the Boring Company, for Neuralink. I mean, it's just that's where the talent is going right now, and they're willing to pony up everything that's needed to train them.
What's Neuralink?
The brain implant.
Ooh. What does that do?
Well, it's really fascinating. I mean, your brain is like a bunch of electrodes. So if you think about it from a wiring harness standpoint, over time, those wires start to short circuit. So your hearing goes. That's when disease can kick in, or whatever the case is. Eyesight, hearing. Those things start to go bad, and it's what it is. It's the neurons in your brain that's to start to age. And so with Neuralink, they put a receptor implant that into your brain, and that essentially rewires everything in your brain. So people that couldn't see can see. People that were paralyzed then have movement again. People that have never been able to hear can then hear. They'll be able to reverse a lot of the aging and establish things that were never established before.
So we're never dying?
I don't think that they're not cracking the age standpoint in terms, I mean, cells can only replicate so many times before they can't replicate anymore. But from a brain standpoint,
that's pretty cool though.
Yeah. They're supposed to do human trials sometime by the end of this year.
Wow.
It's supposed to revolutionize the way people learn. Picture that, like reading you said you don't read, but watching things. Picture you could do that at like 100x speed.
Say that while we were alive. I mean, now you got
But I mean, when like with someone who goes their whole life living a normal life, and then all of a sudden they're diagnosed with something like Parkinson's.
Yeah.
You know, if you can go in and reverse that, because it's just a matter of just reconnecting the wires in your brain. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's a really, really big deal.
Wow.
But I mean, all this stuff is software. You know, and Connor, you said that you're a self-described nerd that studied math. How important are those math skills that you would learn in high school that to put into play?
Very important. It's like learning to talk is like the basis for being able to write like succinctly and communicate effectively. That's how I view high school math. I also have this somewhat of a controversial opinion that there is no excuse to not being proficient in math at some level. It's all just about effort and time. I just happened to really like it, so I spent more time doing it. But very like there are, even though I didn't get traditional like education in software development, that math education helped me understand. It's like the same exact process that I just brought to software development. It's like, what do I understand? What are called axioms that I can take advantage of? And then how can I combine them in the right way to get to my end goal, which is, I don't know, a function somewhere that texts me if one of our pieces of our software fails. It's like just problem solving.
Did you know that you always wanted to be in business, your own thing?
Yeah, and I learned that working at Chick-fil-A, pretty much.
What about My Pleasure You got you to do that?
I worked for $7.25 an hour over a fry oven. I was like, this sucks. I hate doing this. I am worth way more than $7.25 an hour, even as a 15-year-old. That's what I thought. I was like, the only way I'm going to be able to convince someone of this is if I'm the person that hires myself to do it. And so I grew up like mowing lawns and lemonade stand, all that stuff. I actually also had a business on Amazon selling books. So I drive to Goodwill and offer them $100 for every single book they had in the place. Then I could list it on Amazon for a penny, ship it for $1.50, and get $4.99 from Amazon for the shipping. So that's like a $3.50 spread. So I ended up being able to make like $18-20 an hour, depending upon how quickly I was able to do things.
Wait. Did you? Amazon would pay you for shipping in that?
So I could list the book for a penny, and then I would get $4.99 from through Amazon, but from the consumer, they would pay that $4.99. And so if I got a small enough book, I'd say, give me all your paperbacks at Goodwill. Here's $100. Get like thousands of books at a time. My mom hated me because I bought industrial shelving from Costco, and her basement didn't exist. After that point, I probably had 5,000 books at the height, and hired my best friend to work for me, and he would list books while I would go buy them on the weekends. And then I'd make like $3.50 on every single book that I sold for a penny.
Did you ever find a diamond in the rough, so to speak, like a rare first edition that got more than a penny?
Yeah, if you scanned them on your phone or just typed in the ISBN, a couple of books sold for like $100. But if they're that expensive, they typically take longer to sell too. And I just wanted inventory in, inventory out.
Tim, I don't know if we talked about this with Chris Tillett when we talked about him, but he had started this business with one of his friends, and they would sell video games and stuff like that. And they did something similar where they would go and you don't make money when you buy the 1s and 2s. You got to buy them in bulk, right? Which is what you're saying, Connor. And so they would go to thrift stores, yard sales, and stuff like that, and they would buy units with games. Buy the. When people are trying to get rid of this stuff, they're selling them usually pretty cheap. And then they could go and, let's say they spent $100 on a box, they could go and turn that, for multiple thousands of dollars. I think they both were making like $80K a year just flipping video games, which is wow. There was an app at the time. This is probably like 9 years ago. So it sounds like the ISBN number that you would do for a book, they had that for video games through some sort of Amazon seller platform app. They'd put that in and people would buy stuff. It's interesting what people will pay for. People don't pay extra money for like old Madden, but other stuff they will. And so it's wild. Yeah.
I even bought like a label maker. I bought bubble mailers from China because I could get them 5,000 at a time for real cheap. My mom and my dad hated that because the whole basement didn't exist for probably about a year and a half. Then the Kindle came out. The night I saw the Kindle get announced, I ended the shop that I had on Amazon, packed up all of my books, put them in my dad's Suburban, drove them back to Goodwill, and gave them to Goodwill for free. I was like, I can't compete with electronic books, so I'm done.
Interesting. And then you got into the
Kindle. Do you think Kindle has won that war?
For me personally, no. I love the feel and this. Like, I love reading. Actually, I have read. I can't mirrored some of these books. I have read. I love the feel of the books, and flipping through it is very cathartic when you finish a page. But
I feel like audiobooks beat ebooks. I should look at my books numbers and see what those percentages are.
Yeah.
For my book personally, like, I wonder what that is. I would tend to think that ebooks are not the winner in that, but who knows? What I mean, Tim, you don't read any ebooks, right? I mean, you just listen, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a time thing for me. But yeah, I do more listening than anything else.
Yeah.
You gotta learn how you learn.
It's just I'm fascinated by your history in terms of lemonade stands, mowing lawns, books, and then you got into the house flipping deal as well. So, where have you always been really just curious and just had that business sense that you just jump in?
Curious for sure. Business sense. You could make a lot of arguments that I have none of it, just based upon all the horrible decisions I've made, the failures. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm really, really big in the sense of if you learn along the way, you didn't fail anything at all. So,
very curious. And actually, the biggest lesson I learned probably put me in a 6-month depression, like where I just wouldn't eat, didn't want to leave I've always been a happy guy. But I flipped homes in college, bought the last home I ever flipped. I bought. And I bought it because I had, because of my hubris. I thought I couldn't make a mistake. I had done it 13 times before. I didn't want to listen to any of my advisors. I didn't want to listen to my dad or any of the real estate people that I had known for like 4 or 5 years, because I thought I was King Midas and everything I touched turned to gold. And I learned very quickly that humility will lead you to way better decision making than thinking you know what to do all the time and not asking for help. Because then I lost almost about $100,000 of my own money, which was everything I had saved up. I was going to propose to my girlfriend. I was going to buy a home. I was going to move out of my parents' house. I was going to start a life, and all of it just disappeared because I was an idiot. And
what went wrong in that situation?
Everything.
Like, what was? Yeah, but like that's such a. Like,
So,
what really happened in that situation? What was the advice that they were saying? What was so wrong about that house?
Do more due diligence. So I walked into the house, took a look at it. I was like, yep, we're buying this. And then everyone else was like, you need to go spend some money, look at the septic. You need to spend some money, look at the roof. You need to spend some money, look at the wiring. The home is roughly this old, so there might be knob and tube wiring is what it's called, or you might need to update it. This might not be to county regulations. And when you pull off the drywall and you see it, then you actually have to fix things. And I listened to none of that because I thought that they were all wrong and that it was a deal and I should buy it without needing to go listen to some experts. And I did, and paid for all of it.
You could have been right, though.
Yeah, that's what I was. That doesn't pay the bills, though. Yeah, could have been right, but yeah.
No, but I mean, like there is the opposite of that story too, right?
Yeah.
Where you don't like.
Yeah.
You were right in that situation, right? And not. Yes, it's ended up sucking for you, but there are plenty of risk reward situations where like you don't take the advice of people, and you're like, I was right. Here's why. Now, it sounds like you were a little on the cocky aspect of it, but still, like, I think there's plenty of situations where that happens and it works for you. I mean, I remember I don't even know that I told you this story, Tim, but like, so I put on my first big event was Start Norfolk, which is like a build a company in a weekend competition. And there was plenty of people who told me this is the stupidest idea ever. And I was like, so I'm getting that same advice that you're getting. Right. And I was like, yeah, here's why I think it's not. And they're like, nope, the area doesn't want it. They're not interested, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And it ended up being a successful event that we did 5 times and did wonders for me. So, it can work in that situation. What's interesting is another event where everyone told me to do, And I kind of went in a situation like you did, where I was just like, let's just go drop anchor, Tim. That event, which everyone was like, this is exactly what we need. It was complete BS, and it flopped, and I lost a ton of money on that because I listened to a bunch of people in that case to do this thing that was way too big to start. I needed to do a way smaller. But yeah, I mean, look, it can go the opposite way too, and you could still be flipping houses these days. Do you ever miss those days? Do you ever want to get back into that?
No, absolutely not. It's giving me a bit of PTSD.
Well, sorry.
No, not you. Like that whole industry.
I don't want to be the reason for this.
No. I would say the quality of people that I meet in cybersecurity and specifically SaaS and like this kind of entrepreneurship is vastly different than the type of than any type of person I pretty much met doing real estate. So it's way more refreshing doing what I'm doing now. And I enjoy it a lot more. I'm way more technical and I enjoy it. That's what I realized. Like when I was laying in my bed, like, I don't want to get up today. It's like, well, okay, I guess that's it. This is the rest of my life. It's like everyone gets to that point. And I was like, after a while I was like, what do I really like? It's like, you know what? I really like that math thing. I really like that coding thing. Maybe I should just do that. And I had nothing to lose. So I went back to it.
Were you just saying that you didn't want to wake up today to go on this show?
No.
All right, I just wanted to make sure.
No, that when I was
I knew you weren't. I was messing with you. It's the thing I do to triplets.
You have a lot of those on the show?
Nope, first one that I know of.
Now it's a pattern, right?
What with your business? Did you have you bootstrapped this, or did you raise any money?
Yeah, I bootstrapped it for probably the first 2 years, and then last September we raised $500,000 from some really, really cool people that I really enjoy. So we were bootstrapped, and now we're not.
Interesting. What and like with your being SaaS right now, are you considered default alive in terms of, are you bringing in enough revenue to maintain the business, or how are you using the capital that you raised today?
All of it's going towards marketing pretty much. So we're almost default alive, but we have a bunch of money in the bank that we raised last year and at the beginning of this year. So we'll be fine. I've seen a lot of that going around Twitter, but
April of last year, though, I think it was April of last year, you were almost belly up.
Oh yeah. There was a point where we probably had 3 or 4, like when we were bootstrapping, initial people who like we talked about, people who don't pay, customers who don't pay aren't customers earlier. They were willing to pay, and they're willing to be those first adopters, even though they knew that it was me in my parents' basement and my co-founder. Like that was it. It was just us two. And then we making a few thousand a month in revenue at that point, and then had a service outage that all of our alerting failed, like probably 4 or 5 different levels of alerting to know that things weren't happening as they should, failed. We didn't catch it till the last day of the month, which is, we bill on a monthly cycle. So we had to tell all of our partners, which was like, we already had tenuous relationships with, because they were brand new and they knew that they were taking a risk, that their risk had just been quantified because it didn't work. And we couldn't bill them for any of the activity. We didn't feel right doing that, so we didn't. And the bad part is we were going to use that revenue to pay for my co-founder's mortgage, because he had stepped away from his job to start working full time. And he didn't know if he was going to be able to make his mortgage payments anymore, because we had no more revenue, no more money. So it was a really tough time for a bit there.
You actually bill them monthly, or is it automatically recurring?
I actually bill them now, but we're building the recurring usage-based billing right now, like through Stripe and ChargeBee.
Huh.
But I actually do bill them.
Interesting. I feel like the camera company that I use in my house sometimes should email me and call me and tell me that my cameras are down, and I shouldn't have to pay for that every month.
Look at your.
I probably shouldn't have said that live, but
if you signed a contract with them, there's often like a service level agreement that will, at penalty of outage, reduce the premiums you pay. We have that, and so do many software companies do as well. And it might just have been tucked away.
Allegedly, my the recycling in my city is about to go away, and for some reason they didn't come last week. And I told my wife last night, I was like, so everyone in the neighborhood has literally had the recycling bin sitting out there for a week. And I'm like, I'm calling them and I want 25% off. I don't know. I don't even care how much it is. I want that 25% off because you guys didn't come and do what you were supposed to do. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want that money? I mean, I can get a Chipotle burrito for that.
That's all that matters. Measured in Chipotle burritos.
Man, I guess they just offered me free guacamole and I already get the veggie. So it's like, come on, I already get free guacamole. Like, give me something of power and substance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim's like, you're ridiculous.
No, anyway, I am curious.
Heavy sigh. I digress.
Yeah. Heavy sigh. With all that, I think that you've got some really solid building blocks, though, in terms of building a strong future. I mean, you've learned a lot along the way, especially when there's just a lot of people out there that they've never even started a business, and you've learned a lot along the way. Where do you see things in the future for you?
Definitely still in the tech space, doing something. I, as any software entrepreneur will tell you, in the process of building this business and where we are, we have a bunch of clients now. So as I talk with them, they're telling me about other problems that they have. And then I'm able to combine that with not only the lessons I've learned, but information that I gather from advisors and other areas. So it's like, I have a list in my phone of like 100 different problems that I could be solving right now, but I'm not, because I want to focus on this. It's like, all right, well, I'll just keep doing those. I'll figure out one of those until forever. I'll just keep doing that.
How many advisors do you have now? And how do you treat advisors differently than going back to the house flipping days?
So in the house flipping days, I guess
you didn't listen to your advisors.
Yeah,
so how do you treat that relationship now with advisors?
Nowadays, there's expectations. There's compensation directly to the advisor, whether that's options, equity, monetary compensation on whatever schedule. And then there's an expectation of we're going to meet. I get to set meetings on these regular bases, or what my co-founder actually came up with, which might be really good advice for everyone, is make it project-based. So we brought on certain advisors that were not only in the industry we wanted to either play in or were already playing in. And we said, hey, we really need your help in this area. And we see that you're an expert. So for instance, one is like connecting all of your tools together and making sure you can feed data from your platform into not only the other tools you're connected to, but your HubSpot and your CRM. And we're like, you did that for this company. Can you come in and do that for us as well? Because we don't have the resources to do it right now. And we really need that. Whereas others, it's like general industry advice. You're connected to thousands of potential customers. Can you connect us with a few of them right now so we can learn and then get exposed to the rest of them? Clarify expectations is probably the shortest thing that I should have said. But.
That's awesome. I mean, and the fact that you invest in yourself, you invest in your business, that you, I always commend people that use their vulnerabilities as a strength. To me, I don't think enough people do that.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty easy to do when you don't feel like you got strengths in any area. Imposter syndrome is huge in this industry. Not only me, struggle with it, my co-founder, but every single entrepreneur I've ever talked to is like, oh yeah, like I remember struggling with that and having to go through. It's like, why me? Why am I the person to do this? And one of my advisors, I call him an advisor. He's just a really, really good friend of mine. He said, the only people that struggle with imposter syndrome are typically capable people. It's like, so the fact that you're struggling with it is a sign to me that you'll probably just get through this and you need to stop worrying about it. I was like, all right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's not going to make the feeling go away, but I'll start acting differently.
You talked about depression several years ago. Did it immediately hit when you lost all that money? And how did you kind of push through it?
So the interesting thing about real estate is you dig a hole, and the only way to get to the other side is to keep digging the hole. Because once you bought the project, you've sunk the cost. You make and lose all your money when you buy the home, not when you flip it. So I didn't realize when I bought the home that I was going to lose all that money till about a few months in. And at that point, there was about 9 months left in the project to go. It was a huge deal. It was probably the biggest project I had done at that point. And so right when I knew it was going to be a loss, and then I knew of other things that were just going to keep stacking up, like expenses I was going to have to pay. So I just didn't. That's when the depression hit. And I probably had about 6 months of having to still deal with the fact that I still owned this property. I still needed to pay contractors. I needed to go find money somewhere else to complete the flip, or I'd lose everything, not just $100,000. And that was the hardest part, was knowing that I had to keep digging the hole, and the hole was already like, I was already in the hole, couldn't even see the sun anymore. I was that deep, and still had to keep digging.
And what did you get through it though?
After a few months of that, I woke up one morning. I was like, feeling this way is not gonna change any of the outcomes that I'm gonna be able to produce, not only in this project, but in life in general. It's like, I'm going to have way bigger failures than this. My family members are going to get sick. There's going to be a death in the family. It's like, something's going to happen. It's like, I can let this define how I'm going to live right now and impact what I'm going to do in the future. It's like, or I can just get up and take control of what I can actually control, and admit where I'm out of control and not let it worry me anymore. Like literally night and day. One day after about 6 months, I just woke up one morning. And I was over it. I was completely done, and just woke up and got after it.
Yeah, that's deep. I think that's an area in entrepreneurship that a lot of people don't talk about, but it's real.
It is the loneliest thing I've ever done. I'll phrase it like that.
Is that an embarrassment thing, Tim? They're just embarrassed. They don't want to share it. They don't want. What are your thoughts?
I think that there may be some degree to that, and I think that that's one thing that I've personally tried to change the mindset of people is not looking at failure as something to be embarrassed about. And I try to flip it in the sense of, hey man, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough, and almost wear it as not wearing it almost as a badge of honor, in the sense of, but people shouldn't be penalized.
What entrepreneur hasn't gone through that?
The entrepreneurs. The fake one.
Yeah.
Well,
because there is that social media, Instagram type of effect, man, that everyone's just posting the best part of their life. And then and when you surround yourself with something like that, man, you're like, dude, I got to make some things happen so that we can make payroll. I got how am I going to dig myself out of this project? I mean, that's where I think that you need that support system so that you can turn to say, hey man, I pull me out of this, because not that it just help me get out of this dark spot that I'm in right now.
Well, I mean, they're selling something in that case that is not real. In many of these cases, they want people to think that they're something different. Like, look, obviously we do this show once a week, and we talk a lot on these things, but from an actual like posting thing online, like I don't post a lot of things, but when I do, like I try to tell the real story. The last post that I can think of that I wrote was back in November, when I quit that marathon race, right? Yeah. Like to me, like that's the last thing. And so for people to be, most people's thing is a celebration of a run. Oh, I did this thing. I'm great. Yada yada yada. Whatever. And I sat there and I was like, I was like, yo, like I wanted that outcome, and I was pretty damn close, but I quit 2.5 miles from my finish line, and I want you guys to realize that. And like this thing actually does happen.
That's just stuff that's super easy to lose sight on. I mean,
well, because you see it over and over again. It's just scroll. It's all positivity. Right. It's like, yo, that ain't life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, dude, I mean, how many lines of code do you think that you've written in your lifetime, Connor? I mean, I'm sure it's just thousands and thousands and thousands. And there's probably a lot of pain you had to go through in order to get that initial baseline product from that 0 to an almost 1.
Yeah, there was a period probably for about 3 months where it was me in my parents' basement in a room that I would lock so my brothers wouldn't bother me for about 16 hours a day, and me and a brick of Coors Light. And I just coded
a what of Coors Light?
A brick.
That sounds exciting.
And I would just sit in their basement for 3 months in a row. Like nobody saw me pretty much. My fiance was like, yo, like, what's going on? Are you okay? And I just knew it's like, I need to teach myself enough code and I need to get this to a state where somebody else is going to be interested enough to work with me. It took about 3 months. And then I came up for air and was like, oh, I need to go listen. I need to go talk to more people now because I had something.
That's an important part of the journey. I mean, that's really, to me, that's really important. So 5 years from now, when you've 10x, 100x or whatever it is that you're going to do, you know, I mean, and people are like, oh man, look at Connor, You know, it's just like, dude, I locked myself in a basement for 3 months with a brick of Coors Light. You know, don't forget about that part.
There was a lot of struggle involved, and I was the only one. In Delaware, in Delaware, like, recycling's fake. It all just goes to, I think that's like the dirty secret at Delaware. It's like, even though there are recycling bins, it all just goes to the same place. So I'll say yes, but it doesn't.
What's the startup scene like in Delaware? Where do you go to attend events or to meet for meetups and that kind of thing?
The startup scene, I think one of the reasons I interested Zack was, I was like, I'm one of like 3 startups. I'm like the only startup I know of in Delaware. There's actually like 3 of us maybe. And the startup scene does not really exist, save for there's a guy I went to college with named Mo, who's trying to do a startup community here. I'm actually, Friday, he has an event in Wilmington. So I'll be driving a bunch of people from the college here to Wilmington. But I had to go to DC for advisors, Florida for money, New York for advisors. There was, and like nobody in Delaware. I'm in like, there's like first, second, and third tier investment markets. I'm like 9th tier market. I'm in Joe Schmo, Delaware. Like nobody knows about that in entrepreneurship. So
the thing is though, I don't want to generalize here, but there are a lot of people in this area, you know, they think that they're in a 9th tier market, you know, and you found a way to make it happen. And I would say that from the sounds of it, that this area is a lot more mature and there's a lot more opportunity than what you were up against, but you found a way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also, you know, starting this business, the best way to get customers is to meet them in person at events. We started doing things the very next week after COVID lockdown started, but we didn't know that the only way to meet people was through events too. So it's like the sign for like a real entrepreneur when I would meet them in college and they're like, oh, I'm in the entrepreneurship program, was like, oh, like, well, what are you struggling with today? And what are you trying to do that's not working? Because everyone can go to school and class and do well. It's like, you just got to put in the effort. It's like, in order to be an entrepreneur, you got to find something, you got to struggle with it, and you got to get over that. That's all that I did. I just thought I was going to make it work because it's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go back to Chick-fil-A and work. Didn't want to go back to work for anybody else. Didn't want to get a PhD. Didn't want any of that. I just wanted to do my own thing and help people.
Yeah, I sure do want Chick-fil-A for lunch.
It's delicious. They make some good food for sure, but I didn't like working for them.
Yeah, man, I don't got to work for them to like it. You know?
Yeah. Feels like you go to church every time you sit in there. So you feel good.
I always crave it on Sundays. I mean, that's the worst part.
Yeah.
Fun fact: I once picked up Tim from a Chick-fil-A parking lot. We were not friends at that time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We have a couple Chick-fil-A stories. Because we also used to go to Chick-fil-A and you would see how many times you can get a my pleasure out of the people at the counter.
A lot of them.
I can't remember what the number was, but
I think 11. I think 11
with one order. Yeah.
Why are you gonna tell people my baggage, Tim? Make me look ridiculous. So I was advised. I don't know if that's the right word, but I was talking to a client the other day, and they're like, "Do you watch Young Rock?" And I was like, "Surprisingly, no. I mean, obviously, I got the Rock poster behind me. I just never got into it. I never started watching it. Obviously, we're talking about Dwayne The Rock Johnson. He has his own show on, I guess, NBC. And I guess I didn't realize, even though it's called Young Rock, how much of what, from a wrestling perspective, they would talk about, or like his life, even though clearly thinking about that now, that's like what the whole damn show's about. So I recently started watching it. It's actually fantastic. It's probably only fantastic for wrestling fans, I would think. Maybe not, but it's interesting to hear The Rock talk through some of his life experiences. And he was this one made me think of you, Connor, in this situation where he's fishing after not making the NFL, and he's in Canada at the Canadian Football League, and he's fishing with one of his teammates, and he has no money. He's making $55 a week, a month, something like that. And he goes fishing with this guy, and when he's trying to reel in the fish, he breaks the rod because he's so strong, and he's so mad. And he looks at his teammate. He's like, "I can't help you." And it was interesting because the teammate goes, "It's just a thing. It'll be okay." And that was it. It's just a thing. And I'm doing very bad job of explaining this, but in the moment it was like, oh, that's really powerful. It, you know, that you broke this thing. It'll be fine. You know, get over it. It reminds me of former Duke coach, Coach K, because I can't say or spell his last name. His whole thing is next play, right? Like, bad thing happened, move on to the next play. And so it's like we get so infatuated with these scenarios or this thing. It's just like, is it really that big of a deal? No, it's just a thing. Oh, you failed, whatever. On to the next, right? Just learn from that lesson. And I really just wanted Andrew to clip this out of me talking about The Rock and how I'm watching a show. Because Tim's talked about clips all day, and I haven't said a thing about clips. And it's just like, come on, like let's go. But
you got a clip now too.
And he probably won't clip it, but that's fine. He probably shouldn't. He's like, this guy's the disaster. This is terrible. But they're all just things. That's it.
They are. True. This too shall pass is what my grandfather says.
There you go.
It's good.
So Zach looks to The Rock for inspiration. Who do you look to for inspiration, or and then follow up to that? What podcasts do you typically listen to?
You could have probably guessed this, Zach. I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, but specifically, I'm not a big into like the comedian stuff that he brings on. The comedians he brings, sometimes I'll whatever, but I like when he brings on experts in certain areas like doctors, and I'll listen to an actual conversation. I also listen to How I Built This. Started listening to you guys. I listened to Saster a bunch, and that's pretty much all I got time for. I don't do a lot of driving. I do a lot of. Yeah.
Lex Friedman's pretty good as well, but man, those are like 3-4 hours long, just like Joe Rogan is. It's so.
But a lot of times, that's the situation to actually get context out of something that you need, right? And so we're in this immediacy world where you want it in one screenshot or 1 90-second story on the news. You know, former news guy, I have a journalism degree. Like, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell deep stories in 90 seconds. It's really hard to tell that in 5 minutes. Yeah. And here we are trying to tell complex stories in a couple of seconds. That's disaster transport.
There's room for nuance in everything. And I think when people try to say there's not, it's like you're trying to simplify a thing that probably doesn't need to be simplified just yet. We need to talk about all this.
It's usually not as black and white as people want it to be too. It's like, this thing can't be fixed super easily this way. Like, let's really deep dive into that.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
I don't really watch Joe Rogan that much. I think the last time I watched Joe Rogan was the Undertaker interview, maybe like 2 years ago.
I feel like,
and that was the first time they came out with their video platform, and it was terrible. Are they still doing video?
Like on Spotify,
yeah, on Spotify.
That's cool. Well, good for you, Spotify.
Well, they paid for it.
They paid a lot for it.
I'm sure they made their money back, and if they didn't, that sucks. Connor, what's something we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Dang, I can't really think of anything.
All right.
Best way to get in touch with you for cybersecurity needs?
LinkedIn. Just if you go to actually that website, every form on that website goes directly to my inbox, even the contact forms. If you find me on LinkedIn, just Connor Swalm, or if you find me on Twitter, Connor Swalm 14. I troll those on a regular basis, so you can find me.
That's just a classic startup thing, though, man. Every startup, all the forms go to the founder.
Oh yeah. Until recently, so we hired a bunch of developers, and then we just hired our partner success managers so that I didn't have to do it, all the sales and some
Yeah.
development, and now it's like, okay, I still do all the sales. It's like, damn,
it's one of those comical things, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I didn't want to, it's like, man, I have really strong relationships with clients or whatever, and just the relationships are everything. That business revolves around, but then it's just like, dude, I don't want to jeopardize the relationship that we have. So then, next year, finance at and so that way invoices come from the finance department of me. I think it's funny. It's a classic thing, and
I knew
no shame in that game.
No, not at all. I knew we were growing, Tim, when I looked at our CRM and I saw that we had a client, and I looked at the client's name and the people who were like the business, and I was like, I have no idea who this is.
That's not great.
I went into our Google Drive, looked at the contract. I was like, yeah, that's a real client. They're paying us real money. That's
awesome. That and that's the thing. Zach and I are always telling people, man, celebrate your successes, no matter how small they may seem.
It's a big win.
That is a big, big win.
Yeah.
When you have a customer that you don't know how they came there. Like people don't celebrate enough, like Tim just said. But like in this situation, like it's like, yo, like
something's working.
Something in there worked. Now figure out what that was and see if you can replicate it. Like, let's go.
Tell you what though, I immediately emailed the contact and I was, hey, just want to introduce myself. But he immediately went right in to try to make a relationship. And then I talked with our partner success manager, and I was like, oh, I totally just stepped on your toes, didn't I? He's like, yeah. I was like, my bad. I was like, I'll bring you back into the loop. I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. This is your job. You do this for sure. That advice, Zach, though, like celebrate the small wins. I asked, he's an investor, and I asked him for a lot of advice. He manages a family office in DC. And I was like, what is the one thing you regret about all the startups you did? It's like, I care more about not the people's wins, it's their failures, because that's where they learn everything. He's like, you know what? We had a wonderful exit in the last company that I did. It's like, I made more money than I ever thought I would. Enough success that I could go do other stuff. I was like, what did you regret? He said, I regret not celebrating more often. He's like, we'd hit a milestone, and all right, guys, we got to keep pounding. Next milestone's right there. And we hit a while back, like 100K in ARR, which is everyone 83.3 per month in revenue. And he's like, so where are you taking the guys out to dinner? I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, we got work to do. He's like, you're going to regret it if you don't do this. And I'm going to tell you, he's like, go spend some money, go out, get some drinks, take them to a nice place, not McDonald's, and take your entire team Chick-fil-A. And say, hey, Chick-fil-A, we've done a great thing here. We have more to do, but let's stop for today. Let's celebrate together. Let's take stock of where we are and let's have fun.
It makes things meaningful. Yeah. If you don't do that, you're like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Like I celebrate, I haven't done this in a while because I haven't had a good run in a while. However, like I'll even celebrate good runs where I'm like, wow, that was a really good run. I'm glad I did that.
That's right. I'm gonna go get myself an apple fritter. I want to celebrate not driving off with my shoes on my Jeep today. Let's start that habit. Lesson learned, man. You got to put them on the hood, dude. You can't put them on the roof. Put them on the hood.
Exactly.
If I put them on the hood, Tim, it might damage the paint, and then I have to
deal with that.
On Saturday, Sunday, whenever I did this, I texted Tim and I said, I can't find my shoes. I think I drove off with them.
Did you find them?
Nope. And I went everywhere. It's happened like 5 or 6 times, but I usually find them.
You found a new pair in your mailbox yesterday.
I did yesterday. I've not. It might be wet out. I don't know that I'm running today, but I don't know how I'm going to find these shoes. I want to at least find them. I want to see them run over.
I want you to find at least one.
Yeah, just
one. I hope that someone actually just found them and now is running in a pair of shoes with 142 miles on them. They got a lot of rubber left on those things, but it's okay. Connor, appreciate your time today. It's been fun, and we'll chat soon. Thanks for listening, y'all. Subscribe.
Exactly.
Download this episode, share it, do all the good stuff. Peace.